Almighty God, we give you thanks and praise for this chance that we can gather in your name and worship you, but also for your word, which encourages us and strengthens us, convicts us, and draws us to you. So, Lord, I pray that these words would glorify you and touch our hearts and our minds, that your Spirit would speak to your people. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Alabama's now open, and many people are enjoying the freedom to leave their homes and go to places that have been closed to them before. So how many of you have already been to your favorite restaurant? Well, Leon and I haven't actually been to a restaurant and sat down, but we've been enjoying, obviously, takeout and whatnot. So we'll be going soon. For me, I know for many of us, that's an exciting thing to be able to go to our favorite restaurant. But for me, it's far more exciting that I can look forward to next Sunday and see the people of God sitting in his church. But even more than that, where the people of God can come together and worship him. So today I'm going to make 4 points about worship that are really important for us to keep in mind as we gather and worship. Number 1, it's interesting when we look at Luke's letter that he wrote to Theophilus, the book of Acts. He said this about Jesus. He showed himself to these men and gave many convincing proofs that he was alive. So the first thing that's absolutely critical before we worship is we've got to believe. If we don't believe, what's the point of gathering and worshiping, right? If you didn't believe the food at that restaurant was any good, you wouldn't go, right? If you didn't believe it, Jesus, through those 40 days in which he was appearing to his apostles and other disciples, was showing convincing proofs. He was convincing them that he was alive. Now here's the challenge that many people face today, and I'm not talking about Christians who already believe, but I'm talking about those of you who are struggling to believe. There are many things that have perhaps caused you to either not believe in the first place, or if you did believe, you've given it up and walked away from it. And I'm not going to try and deal with all of that today. I want you to know, Jesus rose from the dead. He showed himself to all his apostles and disciples for 40 days in different occurrences. Last week we talked about the road to Emmaus. Well, actually, that was Oscar. 2 weeks ago we talked about the road to Emmaus and how he showed himself to those 2 disciples and had a long, intimate conversation with them. Jesus is alive. So really the question we need to ask ourselves is not why is there suffering in the world and why do people die and other people live and all those different kind of questions that we wrestle with that get in the way, but if he's really alive, who is he? That's the central question. Who is Jesus? And we need to answer that before we can wrestle with all those other questions. So I encourage you to investigate who he is. Don't be afraid to look into who Jesus is. Study and read about his life. Read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the eyewitnesses who were there, and what they have to say about Jesus. Many people believe he was just a great teacher, but if you read the things that he said about himself, he didn't believe himself to just be a teacher. He believed himself to be far more than that. So look into it. I encourage you to do that. The second thing we need to talk about came from the end of Luke's gospel, in which he records the Ascension. And in this one verse, have 3 points. Verse 52, then they worshiped him and returned to Jerusalem with great joy. Actually, 2 verses. And they stayed continually in the temple praising God. So, when Jesus ascended into heaven, they didn't say, well, guess it's all over. Time to head home. They actually stayed at the Mount of Olives and they worshiped him because they knew who he was, the Son of God. And they worshiped him. They gave their time and their energy to acknowledge him as their Savior, as their Lord, as their King, as the one who loves them. And so they worshiped him. Secondly, after they worshiped him, they returned to Jerusalem. But they didn't just return to Jerusalem, they returned to Jerusalem with great joy. The scripture tells us. Great joy. See, they knew that he was alive. They knew that he was now in heaven interceding on their behalf because he said he would do that. And they also knew that he had made a promise to them. And they were waiting for that promise with great anticipation, but also with great joy. Are you worshiping the Lord with great joy? Do you come to the house of God with great joy? Now, obviously, some of us, some of you, will be staying home for the foreseeable future and continuing to worship by watching online, and that's absolutely fine. I believe that we can worship God in our homes, in our car, walking down the street, because God sees our heart. And if we're worshiping God, he knows it, and he accepts it from his people. So I encourage you to, when you're preparing to worship, that you pray and prepare your heart. But do it with joy, knowing that God will be present. And then lastly, the very last thing that Luke writes in his gospel before he ends that letter, he said that they stayed continually at the temple praising God. Now obviously, we can't continually stay at church and praise God all the time. But it tells us that it was something that they did over and over again. And when you study church history, and you look at that time right after the Ascension and after Pentecost occurs, which we'll talk about next week, and the church is beginning to spread around to different towns and cities and all over the Roman Empire, what you see is this pattern of the people of God coming together regularly to worship. So I want to encourage you to ask yourself, if you're not doing that, why am I not worshiping regularly? What's keeping me from doing that? Is something about my lifestyle, or is it my attitude, or do I feel guilty about something? Because none of that should keep us from worship. God loves us so much. He wants us to come to him as we are, regardless of the past, regardless of what's going on in our lives and what we're doing or not doing. Come to him and worship. That's what he desires. That's what he longs for. And he meets us there. And in that place of worship, we are forgiven. And there's so many things, I don't have time to go into it. But he meets us in worship. And our needs are met, and then we can glorify him in that place. So as we move forward as the people of God in this strange time, but a time of really, I think, also anticipation and joy, much like the disciples and apostles 2,000 years ago, we can also worship God with great joy and take it to the ends of the earth. Let us pray. Almighty God, as we continue our worship today, I pray you be with us. And that as each person hears this message, that you'd speak to them what they need to hear. Father, if they're convicted, I pray you'd meet them in that place and show them mercy. If they're encouraged, I pray you'd strengthen them. If they're downhearted, I pray you'd give them joy. So, Father, meet us wherever we are in our walk with you and bring us along in our faith and in our church. In Jesus' name, amen.